what initially was the QAnon conspiracy theory, and how has it changed and morphed as literally nothing has come true from their prophecy?
Sure. So QAnon starts in October 2017 with some posts on 4chan by a guy named Q. And the initial prediction is Hillary Clinton's going to be arrested by the end of October 2017. And as you said, I mean, that's the
2017?
2017. Well, and now she's deep into her, 20-year sentence, as we all know. And no, I mean, obviously that's the first prediction that fails to come true. And so from there, they kind of build and build, and they use these clues to essentially sketch this worldview where the world is run by a cabal of satanic pedophiles who drink children's blood, and Donald Trump is going to arrest them and sort of bring on this like fascist utopia. I mean, they think it's a good thing. And so, but as you said, I mean, when this doesn't happen, rather than say, oh, well, I guess that was fake,
Right.
they say, well, she's looking a little weird. She's got kind of like a new wrinkle. I think it's a clone. Or they say, I think she's got like her pants legs, or she's wearing like wide pants. She's wearing like those big J. Crew pants type thing. Maybe she's wearing an ankle bracelet. She's trying to cover it up. So, they keep kind of spinning these things out, and it grows and grows from there.
Right. And until the point where there still people under a bridge in Dallas waiting for JFK Jr. and drinking like jungle juice from a dude with a crow on his shoulder?
Yes. I mean, they kind of return to Dallas every couple months, and now they they follow Trump around like the Grateful Dead. I mean, you may have seen them. He was playing this QAnon song at a rally maybe 6 months ago, and they were like holding up their finger, the QAnon symbol. And that's kind of, as you say, that's a hardcore element. I mean, that was truly bizarre. They all thought JFK was going to come back, JFK Jr. They thought like everyone they saw, they'd see some old, like some white guy, and they'd say, I think that's Robin Williams. Or they'd see a white guy, they'd say like, I think that's Tupac. And so, all these just random people are getting harassed by this crew. It's a really bizarre story.
I love that they're also waiting for Tupac, which I'm like, you could definitely have more of a movement if you like add Tupac to the mix, like what really happened. I love that. Okay. I have to ask you, like, who were some of the weirdest characters that you studied and you talk about in the book, in terms of the QAnon, there's like QAnon influencers effectively.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many weird ones. One of them I mentioned, there's a faction that believes JFK Jr. is coming back to life, and so I write about a couple of the people who that they think are JFK Jr. in disguise. And so one of these guys is named Vincent Fusca. He's kind of I think it's fair to say, sort of a shabby looking guy. He's got like a 5 o'clock shadow. He wears a thrift store suit and a fedora. And they saw him once at a Trump rally, and they're like, well, that's JFK Jr. He looks nothing like him. This famous sex symbol, right? And he knows he's not JFK Jr., but he goes to these rallies.
Coming back humble. It's like the Tyra Banks prank of like reincarnation. He's just coming anyway. Never mind. He's coming back frumpy.
And so I see him at these rallies, and people go, all these women want, oh my gosh, let me give you my number, Vincent. Let me get a selfie with you. And I said to this lady, I was like, I mean, that's not JFK Jr. He doesn't look anything like him. And she said, yeah, he doesn't look anything like him. Haven't you ever heard of Hollywood special effects? Haven't you ever heard of Medea? And I was like, all right,
my God.
It is that delusional.
I'm just curious, like, how much do you think this kind of replaces or fills in the gap for religion for a lot of people? Because when you talk about things not coming true and them still believing it, I can't help but think of doomsday type people who they hit that date of the end of the world, and the world keeps going, and they keep believing. So it just feels so similar.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a huge aspect of it. I think you're totally right. I mean, it's been, we know in emails, some of these Fox News emails that Tucker Carlson was saying, people are into QAnon because they don't have religion anymore. At the same time, there is also a huge overlap with evangelical Christianity. There are people who, because, it's so much about like the devil and utopia and the end times. So you have people whose churches get into QAnon and they get into it from there, or people who get into QAnon and then, they're like, how do I got to fight this devil? I got to join a church. So there's a huge overlap. And as you said, I mean, I think the prophecies failing to come true is a big thing.
And it's like, first it was just, if I thought Jesus coming back was a big deal, but now Tupac's coming back, Kennedy's coming back. And it really kind of undermines the whole basis.
Yeah.
I mean, it gets sort of progressively more ridiculous. And that's one funny part of it, is that you have these different factions who will look at the Tupac crew and say, that's ridiculous. We are the evidence-based, realist QAnon believers. Those guys are making us look bad.
So they're like the left. They're like the
Yes.
Stalin. They're like the fucking the Trots versus the Leninists on the
Exactly, and it gets into those Byzantine feuds, and for me, it's great because then these guys are always giving me tips and digging up dirt on one another.
That's so funny. That's so great. It's such a you're like, no, I totally believe you. You are the I mean, you can't like here how do you do this as a reporter? Like how do you talk to them as a journalist without telling them that you truly think they're cray and they need help?
I mean, it is a lot of saying, well, that's interesting, or I never thought of it that way. I recently interviewed the woman who came up with the whole idea that Dominion stole the election. And, she emailed Fox and said, Scalia was killed in a most dangerous game style human hunting expedition, all this stuff. And so I asked her, I said, well, where'd
I
you
mean,
get
that
this
makes sense
idea?
because homie could not run far, but keep going. Yeah. Like,
It wouldn't be a very sporting match, I would imagine. Yeah.
right.
And so I said, where'd you get this? And I thought she was going to say the internet or something, but she was like, well, I hear clues in songs, or I overhear conversations at the grocery store. They're filled with codes.
Oh,
And, it's just saying, and I said, that seems a little unusual. And she said, well, do you believe in telepathy? And it sort of went down from there. And so, these conversations, there's a lot of just saying, oh, okay.
That must have been hard.
Mm-hmm.
Just like a therapist. I did want to ask you, because I get actually obviously pretty upset when you see these stories of, QAnon believer murders both his kids, usually a man. I think this has happened multiple times. I believe one of them, they were like toddlers and one was like an infant.
Yeah.
And
I
it's
mean, yeah.
chilling. I was just going to say it's chilling. And yet I don't see that much coverage because it is, oh, well, that's a QAnon person. It somehow feels like if we discuss it, it makes it real and it's not a real thing. But no, it is real because literally their kids are being targeted by their psycho dads.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the points I was trying to make in the book, is that this is a real thing. And I think it's easier for people to say, oh, it's like a weird internet thing. I don't need to worry about that. Or it can seem kind of too complex to try to understand if you're just a politically interested person. But, I try to sort of give people the basics of what you need to know. And I started writing on it more once I saw QAnon believers committing crimes. And I thought, okay, at this point, I have to trust the audience to understand what's going on here. And as you said, I mean, we keep seeing these murders. A QAnon guy murdered the head of a mafia family. The Colombo crime family, I believe, or the Gambino.
What?
He just rolled up and popped him, and he was like, I'm taking you to Q's tribunal. Boom. And you have this, as you said, there was a guy who murdered his wife, shot his daughter, another guy who was charged with murdering his 2 toddler age kids.
Yes.
And doing it for QAnon, multiple other murders. And then, of course, January 6th, where all of these people, we know Ashley Babbitt, among others, was saying, I'm going to bring about this kind of QAnon utopia. So, yeah, I mean, it really is. I think it's underestimated. I think it's a force for crime and sort of just for general lunacy in the country.
Yeah, it started with Pizzagate. Man coming with armed into whatever. The pizza shop. I'm forgetting the name of it.
Doesn't it feel impossible? Because unlike, let's say, if you're a supporter of a politician, that's the leader, they're the one making the decisions. It feels like it's kind of random or impossible to predict what post gets traction and taken seriously, who's claiming to be Q now. It feels like it's impossible to really predict where the information is really coming from, because it's a mix of people following posts versus someone listening to someone in the grocery store line versus telepathy. I think that's part of the reason why it's tough, I think, to digest from afar, because you're like, well, it's chaos. I mean, it's pure. Yeah. It feels like pure chaos. The factions, it's like religious factions, but it's like it's happening in real time, by post, day by day. So it's hard to understand it as one solid movement as opposed to a bunch of mentally unwell people.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're making a great point. I think the key thing to understand is they think the world is run by a satanic cabal of pedophiles that drink children's blood. And they think that through violence, they can help Donald Trump bring on this moment called the storm, right? And then we'll live in this utopia, but basically all of his political and cultural enemies will be executed. And so if you kind of hold on to that, but as you say, I mean, it is crazy stuff. I mean, the whole Wayfair thing, if people remember this claim that Wayfair, where we all buy our cheap furniture,
I mentioned that.
Yeah. And that's not originally from Q. That was just sort of a QAnon person did a little freestyling. And there's this kind of culture of like, let's investigate. And then that kind of gets appended onto it. So as you say, I mean, it really is a very chaotic operation.
What's going on, Frantifa? If you haven't already, subscribe to this channel right now. Hit that button. And also, you can become a patron and support the show every single week. Get access to bonus episodes and exclusive merchandise. Patreon.com/bitchuationroom. Do it.